Hello, good day to everyone. Something.
Hey everyone, as our moderator gets everything in order, I just want to take a second to say thank you all so much for joining in. I'm super excited for this speaker. Please take a second, as always, introduce yourself in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining in from, what school you're representing, what country, and if you can, what SDG you're working on this semester. We have as Paul gets ready, I want to call on 2 Millennium Fellows who are with us today to just share a little bit about their projects and what they are passionate about. So I'll hand it over to Berivan joining us from Hague University. Berivan.
Hi everyone, I'm Berivan and I'm one of the campus directors at Çağ University in Turkey, which will do the Instagram takeover this week. My current role is to supervise the metaverse builders in our team and the social media teams. I'm very interested in metaverse and I believe that the cultural heritage are important to protect the culture and its values, which made me inspired to bring both of this to turn out a project. Now, let me briefly talk about what our project is about. The Heritage Memory Project has a mission to preserve heritage sites which are under danger as a result of climate change by recreating them in Second Life Metaverse platform. Through this initiative, Heritage Memory seeks to make these heritage sites accessible to people worldwide. In pursuit of its sustainability goals, Heritage Memory offers educational programs and virtual tours of these heritage sites by enhancing its interactivity. To provide comprehensive accessibility, the project offers not only in written content, but also audio descriptions and sign language videos. By promoting sustainable tourism, the Heritage Memory Project strives to allow people across the globe to explore Turkey's natural beauty and gain insights into its culture without the need for physical travel. Now, thank you for listening. I will give the word to Leila.
Okay, hi everyone. I am Leila Lai. I am the campus director of University College London in England, and my project is called Global Citizens Conscious for Change. So my project is inspired by my observation of the duality of globalization. So we all know that globalization has afforded many young people nowadays to live, grow, and study in different parts of the world, different cultures from very young age. However, this experience can also result in fragmented identities or feelings of insecurities during the crucial stage of identity development in the psychology development, according to psychologist Erickson. So our goal for our project is basically to mitigate feelings of isolation or disassociation that might arise in cross-cultural experiences for young global citizens in their adolescence or early adulthood. And we are aiming to conduct a series of interviews with young people, collect their ideas, their feelings of cross-cultural experiences, what struggles they have. And we are aiming to and we're aiming to interview some professional therapists and psychology professors from universities to see if they have any expert insights to resolving this problem. And towards the end, we're hoping to produce a handbook to guide future citizens to navigate their multicultural experiences as a global citizen throughout the development. And eventually, we're hoping to publish this handbook or bring it to a conference to help more global citizens deal with their identity development, identity crisis in that growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Leila, and thank you, everyone. Wishing you all the best as you work on your project. I think our moderator, Paul, is still trying to fix the audio issue here. So I'll just go ahead and kick off and introduce our speaker, Taylor, down. So I'll just tell if you allow me, I'll just read your bio really quick and then hand it over to you for opening remarks. So, 1 second. So Taylor is a senior Atlantic Fellow for social and economic literacy. He received the first annual Harvard SCCON Social Impact Award and the 2017 Pizzigati Prize for Software Development in the Public Interest. He was named to Forbes 30 under 30 list. He's a 2012 Echoing Green Fellow, a 2014 Reina Arnold Fellow, and a 2015 PopTech Fellow. He serves as an advisor to the technical committee for the ITU DIAL-led GovStack initiative, accelerating the digital transformation of government services through the adoption of digital public rules. He holds an MSc in Inequalities and Social Sciences from the London School of Economics and Political Science with a focus on technology policy, and BA in Religious Studies with a focus on Tibetan Buddhism from Amherst College. I'll pass it over to you, Taylor.
Thank you. James, I really appreciate it. That's a very, very kind introduction. Can you let me know if the audio is okay? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Well, maybe before tucking in, I just wanted to start by saying thanks. It's really, really exciting to get to meet you all today. And I'm super impressed. I obviously I've learned about the fellowship, and I've seen some of the numbers in terms of applications and just how difficult it is to get into this program. So congratulations to everybody, and thanks for having me. Obviously to Millennium Campus Network and the United Nations Academic Impact. It's just a really wonderful program. Um, so. I'm gonna tell you all a little bit about my journey thus far, but try to keep it pretty short and pretty informal, and hope that we can spend a lot of the time today more in discussion. So I'm probably going to stop looking at the chat while I'm going through some slides, but really hope that people are keen to chat, keen to talk about inequality, about data, about social entrepreneurship, you name it. So yeah, thanks again for having me. And without further ado, I'll sort of start at the beginning. So I think that when so I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 1986, and I also grew up just outside New York. And I think that my upbringing was quite different than most people in the world, in that I was growing up in sort of a global North country at like almost near the epicenter of a dominant financial boom. If you think of the sort of Pax Americana as cresting in the 1990s, and Pax is a funny word to use there, but as it was, sort of American hegemony very much dominant at that time in the world, and I think that my sort of so there was no Millennium Fellowship Network at that point in time, and I really first started getting interested in inequality because I was interested in science. I love the natural sciences, and I, for the longest time, thought I was going to be a doctor. I did study Tibetan Buddhism, as James pointed out in the introduction. That was my major, but I also did the pre-medical studies, so sort of physics, chemistry, organic chemistry, and biology, and those were really my passion. I really liked those subjects, but I ended up sort of coming face to face with questions of inequality, actually through travel. So I got a couple of opportunities when I was younger that I think most people in the world don't get, but I got a chance to basically go to a very different place and sort of understand a slice of life that was incredibly different from my own. And from there, the natural question arises, well, why is there so much inequality, right? Why is it that certain countries have sort of certain access to wealth and power and armaments and others don't? And it was studying abroad that sort of led me to come back to the United States and want to try to sort of focus on healthcare. I, for the long time, felt like maybe working in health and working in public health interventions would be a really like high leverage way to tackle some of the global inequality issues. It feels like an early stage intervention that might have a really long tail. And it led me to my first job right out of college. Was working in HIV prevention, actually in South Africa, and I spent about 3 years working in about a dozen different countries, mostly in Southern and Eastern Africa. And it was a really fun job. I got to play a lot of soccer. I was working for an organization that did HIV prevention through sport. So my job was effectively to rock up in a town or a city or sometimes a small village and connect with people through football, and then learn from the local community groups, the local educators, the local sort of leaders in those cities, towns, or villages, learn what problems were facing their youth, what sexual pressures were facing their youth, and sort of provide them with the tools they needed to build a really powerful HIV prevention intervention. In traveling around with grassroots soccer and getting to see a lot of different parts of sort of Southern and Eastern Africa, I started to get really interested in a particular problem. And this problem was that there was actually a lot of energy being put into gathering information about various social programs. So in this case, these are public health interventions. And I started to realize that for so many organizations around the world, they were spending all this time and money capturing data, and it wasn't really going anywhere. It wasn't being used for anything in particular. And this idea of a broken loop of sort of a black hole of information and all this effort being put into monitoring something, but then never actually doing anything with all that data. We used to call it dead data. That really started gnawing at me. And I don't have much advice today, unfortunately, but one of the few little bits that I can really encourage you to think about as you sort of grow your careers in social impact is worry more about problems than solutions. So I fell in love with this problem, and I didn't know quite how to solve it. But by really taking the time to understand the needs of these different organizations and really understanding the pain points of the end beneficiaries all the way up to the sort of monitoring and evaluation directors of these global NGOs, that just opens up a much bigger problem or a much bigger solution space than you probably thought you had initially. So yeah, my first company in 2010, I co-founded a group called Vera Solutions. And it's really wonderful. You should check us out at verasolutions.org. We're now working with like 300 plus different NGOs around the world. We have offices in 5 or 6 countries. And Vera is always hiring. So check out the job board. It's a really, really cool organization. It's basically, the mission is basically to try to take all of this dead data and turn it into action. So create these management systems, these feedback loops, these dashboards that allow the teams working on the ground in HIV prevention or after school education or you name it, to be really results oriented and really data driven in their decision making. It's a blast. It's really, really fun. And I worked on Vera Solutions from 2010 to 2014, 2015. But then I started getting bothered by another problem. And this was roughly that in all of these different systems that we put together for these organizations, whether it's a tiny little community health worker group in Western Kenya, or it is Gavi, or the Global Fund, or PEPFAR, one of these huge like multinational initiatives. All of these different systems, in trying to create good dashboards and good feedback loops, they required a bunch of rote data processing. So a bunch of steps to prepare information or move information, and they required the use of multiple systems. So my little subheading here, algos and APIs, I realized that at Vera Solutions, when we were delivering a solution to some customer, we were actually almost invariably tasked with rebuilding the same kind of data migration tools, or rebuilding the same kind of data integration tools, or rebuilding these very brittle sort of custom coded scripts for trying to automate a particular business process. And so the two aspects of this problem that I got really excited about was, one, I don't think we should make humans do what computers can. That era is sort of beyond us, and I think we're much better than that. So I think it's really important to try to free up humans to do the things that they love and are good at and are inspired by. And number two, it's sort of the programming adage, keep it dry or don't repeat yourself. There's a lot of waste that goes into setting up the same system over and over. And this is really what OpenFN is focused on. So we're a digital public good, the leading digital public good for workflow automation. And we work in 40 plus countries around the world, and we enable sort of process automation, data integration, interoperability for actually still small little community-based NGOs all the way up to larger groups like UNICEF or the Wildlife Conservation Society. And OpenFN is cool. We're still working across a whole bunch of different sectors. So whether it's health or education or the environment that you're interested in, we've probably got some customers doing some pretty cool stuff in those domains. And the sort of I guess the gist behind OpenFN and this whole like don't repeat yourself kind of thing, the don't recode the wheel, is you can think of problem solving as bridge building, and you're often trying to get sort of from one bank to another, and you understand that there's like a big river in between, or maybe in this case a bay. And what we try to do at OpenFN is figure out what are all of the elements that stay the same when we see a similar problem over and over and over and over. And then what are the elements that are different each time? And the bet that we're making at OpenFN is actually that in order to solve this particular class of problem, this data integration, workflow automation problem, there's a lot here that is reusable. And actually, the OpenFN platform is designed to sort of make all of that disappear, because there are sort of different workflows in every organization. And the Ghana Health Service uses OpenFN to do something entirely different than the Cambodia Ministry of Child Protection. But they both use OpenFN, and they both rely on all of this sort of supporting stuff. So that's sort of the ethos behind OpenFN, is like, don't make people recode the wheel. We can be better than that. We can be more efficient. What does it actually look like? Just really quick, it's a platform for building integrations, building workflows, and then running them automatically. I don't actually want to talk that much about OpenFN right now, so I'm gonna skip past this quick. But there's a little bit of a trend that I've noticed in my short but somewhat varied career thus far, which is this idea of zooming out. And I think I was struck by inequality around the age of like 20 or so, right? That's when I started getting really, really interested in it. And I saw like right away, hey, I've got it figured out. I want to be a doctor. I want to work on healthcare, primary healthcare, and focused super, super clearly on that, like one little interaction with a patient. And then I think throughout my career thus far, I've allowed myself to keep my eyes really wide open and try to zoom out and look for other problems in a similar space, or sometimes even higher leverage problems. So maybe first medical work, second public health, third the systems behind public health interventions, and eventually behind the nonprofit sector, and then fourth the connections between those systems. So continuing to sort of ratchet back has been a driving force in my career thus far. And I hope anyway. I'm still going. I think OpenFN is wonderful, and this is where I think I can be the most useful to the sector right now. But I'm absolutely still pushing, still trying to think about bigger problems and other ways to tackle them. I was lucky enough to do a sabbatical at the London School of Economics a couple of years ago through a program called the Atlantic Fellowships. So I studied at the International Inequalities Institute and got to take a year sort of brushing up on inequalities writ large. So gender inequalities, geographic inequalities, wealth dynamics, power dynamics, both within countries and between countries. And that was absolutely wonderful. And it's led me to some of my more recent work that James was mentioning with the ITU around an initiative called GovStack, which is again zooming out a little bit from where I'm comfortable, pushing a little bit past my personal comfort zone, and thinking about whole of government digital transformation initiatives. So what we're doing at GovStack is trying to put together a set of tools and guides and really a framework to make it easier for low to middle income country governments all over the world to achieve digital transformation in ways that are legitimately responsible, and not sort of not rush their way through potentially rush their way through initiatives that might have like far-reaching negative consequences on the citizens that they serve, but do so with all of the materials available to them from past transformation initiatives. So it's a really big open source push, trying to sort of get a lot of this stuff out of the hands of these global north consulting groups, and actually make it freely available, so that there isn't a large barrier to entry for a really effective digital transformation initiative. James, how are we doing on time? What's your?
So you can carry on for another maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll head into questions and answers.
Perfect. I do have to admit it's a little bit strange doing sort of the monologue style rather than the back and forth. So I'm antsy to get to Q&A, but I'll give you two more prepared slides, and then I want to hear from some of the other people in the room. So maybe two more thoughts to finish on. I hope these are actually the last slides. A couple of interesting trends that I've noticed recently. One is just how much people are talking about digital public goods and digital public infrastructure. And maybe, like, can we do a show of hands? Has anyone here heard of digital public goods or digital public infrastructure? Let's see if we get any hands to pop up here. Can you even raise hands with 148 participants? Yeah, there are reactions. There are reactions. Okay, cool. I can put a hand up. All right, so this one is, and how do I put my hand down? Oh gosh, lower hand, there we go. Digital public goods, digital public infrastructure. The trend here is for governments and nonprofits around the world really to be sort of prioritizing open source. And there's a realization that there are a number of technologies that are sort of being relied on increasingly to provide critical citizen services around the world. And insofar as you all are working on social change projects that are mediated by technology, supported by technology, delivered through technology, and I imagine that's pretty much everything in some way or another these days. I would encourage you to check out digital public goods and think about digital public infrastructure. I mean, we can definitely dig into that in the Q&A. But OpenFN is a digital public good. We are committed to open source, and we think it's actually a really powerful way to achieve not only super high quality solutions technologically, but also potentially to affect some real transfer of wealth and power, because digital systems built on DPGs tend to have sort of lower vendor lock-in, and the countries that run those systems can achieve sort of fuller ownership of those solutions by not being dependent on proprietary code written and sort of controlled by other groups. Other stuff. Right. Oh, the shift toward, the shift toward, a lot of governments don't love software as a service anymore, and are much more interested in software delivery as a service or software deployment as a service. So again, I think there are really interesting ways to create sustainable social change projects based on technologies that are completely open source, and it creates this really nice, almost like greed-proof feeling to software projects, where you are required as a software provider to be giving good value for money, because at the end of the day, the stuff that you produce is free and open source, and if you suddenly weren't being a good vendor, then your buyer could go elsewhere. And I think that's really, really, really cool. And then the last one I actually want to hold off for now, because there's nothing you can say about what's happening in artificial intelligence right now in 30 seconds, and not be completely laughed out of the room. But if you want to talk AI and how OpenFM works with artificial intelligence, and why I'm so skeptical but also participating, and I'm happy to chat about it in the Q&A. Yeah, so, oh gosh, I think I was on the wrong slide there. Right, DPGs, open source, AI. Yeah, and then so maybe final thought here. This is a weird one, but I do think, and I can leave this slide up in case we want to talk about any of the particular points here. But approaching innovation with caution. James and I were talking before about how there's a whole lot of brain power being spent making marginal improvements to already comfortable lives, right? There's a whole lot of money going into Silicon Valley to sort of move fast and break things. And I would argue it's because the stakes aren't that high in a lot of cases. And where we work with the populations that we serve, our main users and our main beneficiaries, and so many of my colleagues who work in the nonprofit space or in government, we can't afford to mess up. And this doesn't mean to stop innovating. It doesn't mean to play it safe, but it means to sort of approach innovation in a social space, especially when you're dealing with sort of majority world populations, to approach it in almost like a first do no harm approach. If you take it back to the start, the wanting to go to med school, the Hippocratic Oath. So the first responsibility is to do no harm, and I think that it's an interesting balance, working in social innovation, because you want to push, you want to be innovative, you want to try new things, but you're often serving markets and people who are already disadvantaged in some way, and you need to make sure that what you're doing first and foremost isn't creating more harm and good. Yeah, and I'll leave it with that. Don't suck up to capital. That's all I got.
Incredible. Thank you so much for the nice touch with the background. Taylor, is an amazing keynote. I want to jump straight into a question and answer here, but perhaps I just let fellows know that I'll be asking the speaker just one or two questions, and then I'll open it up to you. Or so if you have a question for Taylor, whether that's on his career, his journey, his Buddhist background, anything, I'm sure he's very happy to answer.
I'm happy. I'm so happy. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I want to begin with, thank you for sharing your journey. I want to begin with a bit of an unusual question. You say you say that the one question that got you into this work at the very beginning was you asked yourself why there's so much inequality in the world.
Just like why do places look different? Right? Why does it look different in this part of the city versus that part of the city? Why does it look different in this country than that country? Right? Like that's an interesting question. But yes, that is one thing that absolutely got me excited. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So having, of course, that question led you to this work. This work has led you to travel around the world to work at non-profits, to build startups, to study inequality in inequality in university. I'm curious, do you think you've gotten any closer to answering this question? And do you think this is a question that can be answered?
No, man. This is for the... Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. So I'm just curious whether you think there's any one thing we can do to make strides as a global society towards reducing global inequality.
I want to push the second part of the question maybe off to the participants. But for the first part, no, I don't think... So having done that sort of, I did in 2018, I did a year at the Inequalities Institute at LSE here in London. And it was absolutely eye-opening. And not only do I feel like there's no sort of easy answer to why is the world an unequal place, but I was actually just blown away at how many different ways people study it, and how sort of useful in terms of predictive power some tools are in some scenarios, and how entirely unhelpful they are in other scenarios. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's an easy answer to that. But as far as solutions for inequality, so back to like the different measures, different metrics. You can line up a handful of academics and ask them, is inequality increasing? Is inequality decreasing? And you can legitimately get well thought out answers in both directions right now. And just last night, I was actually talking to my partner about this, who came back from a book launch, and said that this person was effectively arguing that the most important inequalities are the between country inequalities, and a lot of those are decreasing. Caveat that a lot of that has to do with China and India, and then on the other side, the sort of within country inequalities, we're getting a lot of airtime about within country inequalities increasing, and it might be a bit of a literature bias, because a lot of the stuff being produced, a lot of the work being produced on within country inequalities is coming out of countries like the United Kingdom and the United States, where within country inequalities are increasing significantly. So yeah, it's a super complex question. But I think that, like, as far as a simple starter for a solution, it certainly has to do with like access to the spaces where discourse and ultimately policy get shaped. So I don't feel like I'm in a particularly good position to sort of speak about solutions, but I can definitely prime solutions by trying as hard as possible to work on these little fringe interventions that are hopefully opening the door to the people in governments that are better positioned to sort of participate in this next round of public discourse and public policy. I hope that's not too much of a punt, but what a question though, James, you're killing me, man. This is that's a big one. Yeah.
Big response to a unfair question. Maybe one more before we open it up. And if you have questions for Taylor, please begin to raise your hand or put it in the chat and we'll call on you.
I'm
Taylor,
gonna stand up to get ready for it.
yeah, there's the one question, there's one quote you repeated the first time we met, that you'd rather spend your it's sort of your life creating impact rather than marginally improving already comfortable lives. I think this resonate with people who are, I mean, particularly the fellows in this room who are either studying tech or leveraging tech in some way, shape, or form in their careers. What do you have to say to fellows in the context of this quote in terms of what they should have as priorities and goals for themselves?
Yeah, I mean it's well, so yes, I absolutely believe that, and I also think that tech itself is not the answer, but it shouldn't be the problem. And I do think that we should be rearranging our priorities slightly as a global community. The like, I hate that I'm giving two sides to every response because I don't want to come off like a politician. But these are legitimately complex questions that you're asking. So I would say that on the one side, because of the way that sort of money flows right now in the world, and because opportunities and technology are then sort of skewed toward these corporate tools and these systems that just stand to like make a lot more money and produce higher paying jobs. I'm well aware of the fact that being able to sort of choose a path that isn't always trying to maximize the sort of financial return that you're getting from your job is a privilege. Like it is a massive privilege, right? And for most people in the world, it really is quite important to continue to sort of seek the higher earning opportunities. But then on the other side, like I know for a fact, like money is not the reason that people work, right? It is a reason. It's a huge reason. But the super scarce resource that we're all working with here is time. And even if you sort of throw out all altruistic notions of, hey, I'm trying to make the world a better place, and even if you pretend you're not this at all, but even if you pretend that you are truly just a selfish, self-centered individual, like I think you're gonna have more fun doing things that you believe in, rather than just sort of like watching the bank balance at the end of every month. And again, like remember the first part. For most people in the world, like the most important part is like making sure there's enough in that bank balance to feed their family, etc. But it's not the only reason that people work, and I hope that sort of some of the structural conditions that make some of the higher paying jobs right now unattractive in sort of in the heart feeling sense. I hope that those conditions are sort of slowly but surely being eroded, and that we'll be moving into a sort of a future where people are valuing different types of jobs and then valuing more meaningful work more highly.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. And thanks for taking time to dissect the question so intentionally.
Well, you're asking amazing questions, so thank you.
All right, so I'll pass it over to our fellows now. We have two hands. I see Florence Young. Thank you so much for making time. When you unmute, please, if you can, open your video for Taylor to see you. If not, that's okay. And then also please remember to introduce yourself. Florence?
Hi Taylor. So I'm also doing a project um about like collecting and gathering resources and tools and spread it with my target population. Like mine is the migrant children and migrant families um in between cities. So my question for you would be, how do you evaluate the accessibility of your target population? Like for you, it's the government to use these digital tools. How do you access like the feasibility for them to really utilize the toolkits, the resources, considering they have unique conditions? And how do you like make sure that the resources you collect and you share with them is actually approachable?
Really, really good question, Lawrence. And thanks for raising your hand and being the first person to ask a question. That's awesome. Okay. I want to start with something and tell me if I'm completely off track here. But this sounds almost like a human-centered design or user-centered design question. Do any of those words feel? Have you heard those words, or do those feel? Am I like moving in the right direction? A little bit. Okay. So I mean, for me, I think that the so how do you assess the accessibility of the tools that you're creating for your target population? I think it's a little bit incumbent upon you to incorporate the people that you are serving in the design of those solutions. So two things that we do that we work really hard at OpenFN is one, we have a steering committee, we have an open source steering committee, and we invite people to basically come in and actually kind of like tell us what it is that they need to, like what are the tools that will make their lives easier, what are the things that they're really worried about, and then the other is just like tons of user interviews and tons of feedback. But like all of that stuff has to happen, I think, in the tool design part of the process. Because I don't think if you're excited about the problem, right? So you're not sort of saying that your resources, your toolkit is like you've got this great solution and now you're just like looking for somewhere to sell it, and you're trying to figure out like how do I assess these different markets. It sounds like you're passionate about working with these migrant populations, so I think ideally the idea is to see if you can incorporate them into the design process, so there's not really a gap in the feasibility. So like you're almost, I don't know. Am I way off here, or it would sort of digging into human-centered design and user-centered design be useful in this case, or am I missing the mark? It's hard. I wish we were like sitting down next to each other.
Inspiring. Okay. Keep going on.
Okay. No. But I don't think I have that much more to say about it. But like that's just like the thing in the back of my mind always is like, are we building solutions that we think are cool, or are we sort of building solutions with our users or with our target population because we care about them and their needs? And like I don't know, I spent most of my adult life in sub-Saharan Africa and a little bit in South Asia. I lived in India for like 2-3 years, but mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, and that's like mostly where our technology is used. And I've been in London for 4 years now, and I already feel super out of touch. And it means that more and more we're basically relying on our community, our user group, our open source steering committee, and a lot of our staff we're all spread throughout Africa and Europe at this point. But it's really just like getting as close as you possibly can to your customer, really. I guess if you're serious about providing something that they value, then it's doing whatever you can to get near to them. And I understand the challenges that must come with trying to get near to migrant populations living between cities. Like, oh my gosh, Um, but I would still try.
Thank you.
We have an easier user group to reach than you do, and I wish I had some. I wish I had some better answer. Sorry.
It's already inspiring.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lawrence, and thank you, Taylor. I'll call on Ebenezer for you. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, Ebenezer.
My name is Korir Ebenezer from Kenya. Thank you so much, Taylor, for the insightful sharing. It has been wonderful. And I just have a question to maybe just what do you think should be the effective strategy in harnessing the technology to address the social impact issues or the challenges facing the community? In the like for instance, you could be having an idea that you think that it will solve the challenge that is actually the challenge that you think you have a solution that you think will solve the challenge, but then you think that that solution could be a potential business idea, and you are worried about the people, how the people will take it, and you are not quite sure about it, that the people will buy your idea.
Yeah.
How do you go about it? Yeah.
Another fantastic question. I would say that one of the hardest things about sort of, I don't know, starting a social enterprise is sort of creating some distance between like your idea and the data, right? And I promise you that like if you have an awesome idea for some sort of interesting social intervention, and it might also be a sustainable business. So like first, if you're really excited about the problem itself, like if your idea is taken to scale, I bet in the end you'll be okay anyway. Like if the kernel of your idea grows into some massive project, like I bet you'll be doing well somehow. But then the second thing is like, it's not, most of the time it's not about the idea, right? It's about the execution. So like, I don't know, so many more concepts for interesting social projects or interesting businesses or both. They simply die unheard of, right? And like the advice I give to people when they have like, hey, I have an interesting idea for business, is basically tell absolutely everyone. It would be a dream come true if like 3 of your neighbors tried to steal your idea and launch, because that would mean it's actually like worthwhile. And then the difference between sort of following through and actually making it work, that'll all be in the execution anyway. So I would never like sit on an idea. Instead, if you have an idea about a social project, if you have an idea about a new campaign, a new movement, if you have an idea about a new business, I would talk to people about it as much as possible. And even though maybe there's like a 1 in a million chance that somebody else steals your idea and launches something and you get no credit and they get all this credit, like don't let that tiny little impossibly small chance sort of overwhelm you, or I would say just like zoom out a little bit and be like, yo, the thing that's going to kill this is not that somebody steals it, it's that it never gets off the ground. I never get the feedback I needed. I never get people excited about it. So I would say just like share it. Shout it from the rooftops. I don't think the like corporate espionage stuff is actually that common, especially when we're talking about the social space, where like ultimately all outside, ultimately you're probably going to be excited to see that thing really work. whether or not it's you behind that business. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a weird space because everybody's obsessed with attribution, right? In like a really unhelpful way. Even in like the social impact space, like, foundations are like what they're claiming an increasingly small corner of social impact. It's theirs. It's my social impact. Like, no, stop thinking about attribution. Think about contribution. We should be thinking of ways to maximize our contribution. And this will pay off for you in the end. I'm sure. There's a fun little saying. I don't know where it's. I think it's like God. It's some old San Francisco sort of tech business person. And I know I'm spending most of the call disparaging old San Francisco tech business people. But there's this saying that I'll never forget, that there are two types of people in the world. There are bakers and there are eaters. And when an eater tastes a really delicious piece of pie, the first thing that pops into their mind is, ooh, how can I get a bigger slice of that pie? How can I get my slice to be as big as possible? But then there are some people in the world who are bakers. And you know what a baker does? When a baker tastes a delicious piece of pie, the first thing that pops into their mind is, how are we going to make some more pies? And this, I think, is the challenge for us, is to get out of that eater mentality, get out of the scarcity mentality, and try to get into the, wow, that's delicious. Like, let's make some more of it. Let's get some more people in here. Let's bring my friends over. Let's see what they can add. You've got an eggplant. I've got a zucchini. You've got some whatever. Like, let's get into the contribution mode, not the attribution mode.
That's a beautiful response. Thank you, Taylor. I see we're almost at time, and I want to make sure we respect the time. If you have a hard stop, let me know. But if you can stay on to answer the last two questions, it would be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't know what my next call is. Sorry, hold on 1 second. No, I can stay. I can stay. Yeah. I'd love to stay on. Hold on. Sorry about this. Yes, all good. All good.
All right. So I'll call on, we'll have three last questions. Nazir, and then Leila, and then Colin. Nazir. Nazir, you can go ahead. I see you're unmuted. Maybe as you wait for Nazir, Leila, you can proceed.
Okay. So hi Taylor, thanks for your amazing advance response to the previous question. That was really inspired. And my question would be, a lot of times inequality happens because of power distribution injustice in a way. So a lot of times the problem is not that resources don't exist. It's because the people who are in power are blocking it because they want full control. So I was wondering if in your experience, have you ever encountered any authorities or governments blocking you from entering that market? And or if you were to encounter that kind of situation, how would you deal with it?
Yeah, I think that one of the more interesting sort of one of the issues in the sector that I work in, which is largely sort of international development slash gov tech slash tech for good or something like that, is that even though we are producing and putting forward these open source technologies that sort of speak to the promise of technology to be a force for leveling, right? Like sort of opening up access to markets and breaking down barriers around intellectual property. I think that in our space in particular, there are still a lot of almost gatekeepers. Like it's almost like there's a like a a cultural or an institutional sort of memory. And there's this, there are like certain groups and certain organizations where, like, without the rubber stamp from that particular individual or without the rubber stamp from that particular organization, it's like really hard to do work in certain spaces. And I don't necessarily have a great answer to this. I think that how we've tried to operate is to, when feasible, sort of prioritize transparency. When feasible, to sort of work in the open, and not be shy about sharing sort of who we're speaking with and who we're working with, even if projects fail. Like there are a million and one reasons that projects don't move forward, and I think especially in the sort of social innovation, international development, sort of especially in this particular space, it's really important that people sort of share quite openly sort of who they're working with and what all those relationships are, because otherwise I think that there certainly still is a lot of sort of gatekeeping, and there certainly still are like power brokers within governments, within nonprofit organizations, and within the sector generally. I don't have a great answer for this one, except shine a light on it. I don't know. Try to operate transparently when possible. Own up to mistakes and failures, and sort of consider everybody a potential collaborator. I don't know. All of that sounds very sort of cliche and unhelpful. I'm sorry about that. Good question.
Struggle that even people like you are struggling with, so it's good to know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And like we got so incredibly lucky to get some rubber stamps early on, right? To like get some of the fellowships and stuff like that, that James was talking about. Like they're huge, sort of open all sorts of doors, but there are always more doors. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Leila. And then so we'll call in for the last question, and maybe Taylor, you can, when answering this, you can tie it together with your closing remarks.
Cool.
All right. So hello, Sir Taylor. I'm quite thankful for the talk that you gave, and the thing that you said in the Q&A about contribution versus attribution, that really how do I say this, intrigued me in a way, because in my case, like in my campus, our project is really focusing on agriculture and such, because we plan to install a hydroponic farm to be more sustainable in our produce and such, especially when it comes to our own campus and everything. And it's not yet set in stone, but basically we have a plan on what we could do with potential surplus. Like if we could use that as our own business, like being able to sell that, or even contacting our partner communities to send that out to them should they need it, which granted they most likely do. So in relation to what you said about contribution versus attribution, would you say that there's a balance to it? Like, would you believe in that? Because for me, I see it as something that can go both ways. With the potential surplus that we could have with our fresh produce, there's a portion that we could end up giving to those partner communities that we have, and at the same time, another, or the other half, I guess, in this hypothetical scenario, we could sell it. So what would you say?
So first things first, like, yes, definitely a balance. And James already outed me for studying Buddhism as my my main degree. So you'll hear me talk plenty about the middle way. But beyond the middle way, I would get I think the way to approach an opportunity like that is first do the work in preparing all the information that's going to go into a decision like that. And it sounds like if I were to approach this, basically I would figure out first like what's the present reality, like what's the governance structure of the organization, and it could be anything from complete anarchy to various forms of democracy to like an owned LLC, whatever. But like, get really clear about it. Figure out exactly what the governance structure is in the organization, who has the decision making power right now, and write it down, and make it really clear for everybody to see. Now, understand where you're at right now. Number two, think whatever that sort of key inner group is that has the decision making control, like have really hard conversations about what you actually want, like what do you all want, and how much do you want both the proceeds and the decision making process around the proceeds to be more inclusive. But like figure out on your own, like what are you building here, and make sure you're really clear with yourself about what you want. And obviously I can't really help with that decision. But then, yeah, once you have a really clear articulation of how governance works today, and you know yourself what you want, then I think you engage those stakeholders that you're considering in the process. And the way to do that is responsible and honest and respectful is to basically let them in on the thinking so far and say, look, this is what we have here. Here's how this organization operates. We may have this surplus. We're calling you together here to help us think about what we should do in the event of a surplus, and be really clear with them right from the front that like, is this a democracy? And are you like inviting them to decide what to do with it? Or is it an advisory board and you want to sort of get as much input and you're actually open to a bunch of different ways of distributing this stuff? But be really clear like what the ask is before you invite everybody into the room, because the one thing I would like avoid doing is sort of saying, hey, we might have an opportunity to involve a whole bunch of community stakeholders in a decision-making process. Let's get everybody into the room and then later tell them how much power they actually have. So I think it's really, really important that like everybody knows how much power is sort of available in one of these settings. But then absolutely, like if you figure out that you do want to do this in a collaborative way and you do want to do it in a way that is inclusive with these communities that you're identifying, then like get them there, have them be part of the process. And if you don't, then I would say don't. Or if you want them there in an advisory capacity, but not actually in sort of a like they have a vote on the board capacity, then be really clear with them about that too. As long as you're like open and honest and transparent with everybody from the get-go, it'll be hard for people to find fault. I think sometimes we get into hot water when we kind of want to, after the fact, sort of demonstrate or perform inclusivity, or after the fact demonstrate or perform some sort of does that make sense? Is that helpful at all? So I would say basically like, figure out exactly where all the power lies right now. Figure out what's in paper, what's done and dusted. Decide what you all want, and then if what you all want includes some sort of inclusive decision-making process or community sharing initiative or something, then like don't just build an inclusive process on your own. Like actually get those stakeholders around and help them figure out what it is that you should do with that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I do agree as well. Like transparency and actually getting everyone on the same page. Yes. Once again, thanks for the helpful advice.
Ah, cool. Yeah. Sounds like an awesome project.
Love it. Thank you, Colin. Taylor, I asked for your final remarks, but Zaim here really wants to ask a question. Zaim, we are very terribly over time, so please be very brief, and then Taylor, for this one, you can fight in.
Cool. Hello, Zaim.
Hi, Taylor. Hope you're doing well. First of all, I really appreciate that. And yeah, I just try to come on the point, which is I really like that the thing which you said, which is just share your question to as many as people. Just don't try to keep it to yourself. Uh, I kind of like that point, but to be honest, I kind of
See the flip side of it.
yeah, to be honest, yeah, because um back in the day, like 1 year ago, I had a really great idea, but at the same time, I was kind of a doubt on myself that if I share it with someone, then I might see something which I don't want to see, and so that's why I didn't share, and that did not uh, went as I planned, and yeah, that's so yeah, it went horribly wrong. So
you did wait. You didn't tell anyone about it, or
yeah,
you did, and then somebody else.
yeah. Actually, I didn't tell anyone about this, and someone already was doing that. So it kind of so it would cancel overlap
Okay.
if it makes sense. So yeah. So
Yeah.
my question was, uh, if I want to share my point with someone, and my idea with someone, then I think that I might lose motivation, like, of course, because when you tell your idea to someone that you want to achieve x amount and x thing, and you want to help x amount of people, but you might somehow think, okay, so you, I mean, basically motivation. So yeah, that's it. So this is one of the my point is.
Yeah, I mean, I I get you totally. Feeling like when you have this cool idea, and then you see, oh, somebody's already done it. Like I do feel that, and like I still to this day, there's a part of me that every time I see a new uh, workflow automation solution pop up, I'm like, oh, or every time I see, like it, and I still have that. Like, oof, I completely feel you, but I think that over the years, I have a little bit learned that seeing somebody else sort of succeeding with your idea is probably better than not. So if I were to try to flip it around and maybe motivate you, I would say like most ideas aren't going to work, and most of what makes an idea work is in the execution anyway, rather than the idea. And like, wait, you're saying that you are passionate about this concept, and there's actually a good example of somebody who's doing it well? Like, that means you should go for it. That doesn't mean you should abandon it. It means the opposite. It means, oh, that's great. Thank goodness there's somebody out there who's doing something like this. Let's go. Let's do it. Do you want to partner with them? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Do you want to compete with them? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Do you want to work in a slightly different space, but on the same idea? Maybe. All of these are like decisions that are up to you, but there's so much space. There's just like so much room to do really, really good work. And I think I was my cousin is a university graduate who was working on he was working on it's been exploding with modern advances in AI, but working on basically like blood smear pathology. It was around malaria, and he was getting nervous that other people were working on the idea, and I was like, no, like I don't even want to talk to you until you find at least three other entrepreneurs who are coming up with low cost ways of using computer vision to diagnose malaria. Because like there are what, 8 billion people in the world? And if you're telling me that there's literally nobody who's already doing your great idea, I'm like, probably it's not that great an idea. So like you actually want to go and find people who are doing it. That's just exciting. And then you write them emails and you go talk to them and you build new stuff. I don't know. It's, and like it doesn't, that I'm trying to not discount the feeling that I still get, and I sounds like you get when you're like, oh, but that was my idea and now I feel sad. Like that's real. That's a real feeling. But like zoom out a little bit, be a baker, think about all of the pies that we can make. And especially if we're all working on social impact stuff, like we just need more people doing good stuff. If you love the idea so much and it really is exactly your idea, then you will be the single most important person at that company, whether or not you're the founder or they just call you co-founder later because you bring so much amazing energy and passion to the table, like whatever. But like, if it really is 100% your idea, go work with them. That's great. I don't know. But over time, I think it gets more inspiring to see other people doing the same thing that you thought was your special idea. Yeah, maybe I'll leave it at that if that's okay. And I do feel you, like so many cool, oh my God, so many cool workflow tools. And I'm like, oh, I wish we had a button like that. Or I wish, like, how did they think of that? And I didn't. It's just like, but it's good. In the end, it's I promise you it's good.
Okay, last but not the least, how about that feeling that, oh, like, I hope you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
How about the feeling that, okay, let's say
when you lose motivation, you're like, what have I been wasting my time on? What have I been wasting my time on? Somebody's already done it.
Yeah.
And they have more money than me, and they you know, went to a better school than me, and they have a better net. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a real feeling, but you are not your emotions, you know, like I it's real. It's a real feeling. Absolutely. But like, you're not your emotions. And particularly if the thing you care about is the problem again, and not like your one particular solution of it, the problem is always changing. And like whatever they're solving today, or however they're solving that problem today, it's going to need to be different in about a week or a month, or it's gonna. Honestly, I feel the same way about relationships. I mean, James, this will be my final thought, because then you're gonna really want to just shut off the transcripts and get this weird guy out of here. But like, you fall in love with somebody today, that person is going to be different tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And the responsibility in like a long-term relationship is sort of to be willing to see that person evolve and be able to like fall in love with the next person that comes around. It's a very active loving, not like a it's a very active thing. And I think this is the same idea behind a good business, is that if you're falling in love with the problem, like the solution will change day by day because the problem will also change, right? And you need to be open to how that thing is shifting. So great that this company has launched your idea, but like that was your last idea. And if you're actually passionate about that space, there will be so many nuances, there will be so many differentiators, there will be so many, like that company needs to be evolving every single day after day. And that just creates such a big opportunity space. There's so many, so many people and ideas to fall in love with.
Okay, last but a very short follow-up question.
James is now upset at you. He's wagging his finger at you.
I just have a follow-up question. Okay, you try to accept your feelings. Okay, whatever. My feelings above. My mission is above my feelings. You try to collaborate with that specific team, person, individual, whatever you call it. But you feel like your mission, your vision is kind of contradicting, like your future goals. Like you want to help X amount of people, but they have very less your mindset. So how about that? How will you recounter that? But in the very beginning, you both have the same goals, but for the end term goal, for the long term
You're
goals,
sort of growing in different directions.
yeah,
maybe.
exactly, like different types, and you try to think, okay, why are you wasting your energy from very beginning, and rather start from the like different space. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
it. Thanks, James.
yeah. I honestly would say, like, if you're almost answering your own question there, which I appreciate, but it's like, if you guys are going in different directions, then follow your north, right? Go in your direction. It doesn't sound like they're doing exactly your idea. If your idea takes you over here and their idea takes them over there, so there'll be plenty of room for both of you. Maybe your idea is better. I don't know. Yeah, be. If it sounds like you're super honest with yourself about like where you see things going, so that's an asset, and maybe talk about that with them. And if they're not going in the same direction, then actually there's no hard feelings, and you can both go off in different directions. But I think James will really get mad at me if we keep riffing on this. But thank you so much for asking great questions.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. And so these are him that those are a couple of amazing set of questions. I'll put Taylor's LinkedIn in the chat here. Maybe you want to connect with him, and Taylor, maybe if you want to share any other contacts, any other way people can reach you, you can create in the chat. And yeah, I just want to open it up for you in case you have one last thing to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first of all, reach out. I'm Taylor at openfn.org, and I'm not tremendous on email, but there are a number of different ways to get in touch with my organization and with me. So yeah, like I think all that, James, you please feel free to share like my email and Twitter and openfn.org, the OpenFN community, our GitHub, our, all those different things, all those work. And again, sorry if I'm not always super responsive on email. But yeah, that's all. No big grand final thoughts. It was really amazing to speak with you all today. And thanks for really sort of interesting and hard questions. I hope this was helpful. And congrats again on being where you are on the fellowship and on a really great program. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you for making time to not only speak today, but to stay for an extra 30 minutes for questions. And thank you
of course, there's fun.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who made time. Wishing you all a wonderful week. We have 3 webinars coming up next week. Keep an eye on your portal. Have a good rest of your week. Bye-bye.